Hello everyone, my name is Leah. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to the ultimate guide to special edition books. In case this background here wasn't enough of a dead giveaway, if you're new to my channel, I am a big fan of special edition books. I have quite a big collection and I have put this collection together in really only 2 years. I picked up my first foiled edge books from Books Ever After 2 years ago and I never looked back. I do get questions here and there about different book subscription boxes, different bookish companies, what I think on each of them, what makes a good special edition, and it's been on my mind for quite some time now that I want to make a guide to all the special edition book boxes I have tried, all the companies I have purchased from, give some of my thoughts and tell you about them if this is a collection that you want to get into. Now, what I guess will make this slightly unique is that, unless you haven't picked it up yet, I am Australian. I live in Australia. So I'm going to very much approach it like from the position of an Australian purchaser. So that will impact like a lot of comments I might have about prices and especially about shipping. So just keep that in mind. If you're not from Australia, like some of my comments on shipping may not apply to you, but they certainly do for us. With all that being said, let's get started. Now, I want to start with what I would consider to be the most accessible option for most people, and that is Publisher Deluxe Editions. Publisher Deluxe Editions are great for entry-level collectors and even for seasoned collectors. They typically have really great like entry price points. And if you're on a budget and, you can't afford to go to some of these more elaborate book boxes, but you want a beautiful sprayed edge, you want something that is a little bit special, especially for your favorite books, and maybe you can't own a million of them, but you want to own a few, a $20, $30, $40 special edition from a publisher could be a great option for you. Additionally, these are ones you can find in more accessible places, like I know Target in the US does a lot of them. Here in Australia, oftentimes Kmart, Big W will also do them. Your traditional book suppliers, so here in Australia I'm thinking like Academics, QBD will have them. I know in the US like Barnes & Noble, Waterstones in the UK, and certainly Amazon, you can also purchase these. There tends to be a higher volume of copies of these, so if you're looking for something that is like truly a collector's edition and they've only printed 5,000 of them and they're limited, it might not be rare in that sense, but I know for a lot of people that is just, and certainly in my case, rarity is not a consideration. The great thing about this is it's becoming increasingly more common. Obviously, publishers are recognizing that so many people are into sprayed edition deluxe books. They want to have a beautiful trophy on their shelf and they're tapping into that market. Now, I have sort of two more limiting comments about these sorts of editions. First is that there tends to be a lack of overall customization, so you're not going to see the same levels of editions and customizations that you would in another provider from companies whose entire gigs are having crazy special editions. So oftentimes, let's take To Bleed a Crystal Bloom by Sarah A. Parker, for example. This is the Publisher Deluxe. We have just a hard spray on the top and bottom. Now, some more deluxe companies do that, but typically like you are just going to see a hard spray and just more focused on the actual edge design. Edge designs may vary. This one is quite a nice one and I really like it. Now, this particular one does have a few more customizations than usual. For example, this has a reverse design dust jacket, which most of them will not. It also has a design on the naked hardback, which again, sometimes but not always you will see on Publisher Deluxe. So for example, here's this one with the reverse dust jacket design, pretty uncommon. And this does have a beautiful designed end paper, but it is the same design on front and rear. You won't always even see that in the Publisher Deluxes. I'll pull out another example to show you like how limited some of these customizations can be. Okay, Ashes of Thesma here, solid spray top and bottom. We have the design on the side, which is quite cool, but nothing mystical, magical. It does have quite a cool naked hardback, but you will see on the end papers, we just have a plain color front and back. Publisher deluxes, they are very mass produced as well, so just keep in mind they're not going to have like some of the same weight and quality behind them as a more indie or specialized company might. They are essentially just mass produced trad hardbacks with a sprayed edge. But they are a great option, typically a great price, a great way to get started. I buy them often and I would highly recommend them. Okay, this next option I would still consider relatively accessible, but quite fun and something a lot of people might not consider, and that is foreign language editions. Now, if you're buying a special edition book and you're like, I am buying this edition because I want to specifically read this edition, you're not planning on reading it on your Kindle, you don't have an alternate paperback copy, it's not something you've already read, obviously you would want to pick up a copy in a language that you do read. But if you're looking for a beautiful trophy of a book you already know and love, or if you just love a certain design and you want to display it on your shelves, foreign language editions are a great way to build up your collection. They're a great option for trophy collectors. Something quite unique about continental Europe is that in order to try and boost book sales and encourage interest in reading, most of the publishers there tend to make their widespread, just their traditional here's a hardcover editions more deluxe with the beautiful, beautiful sprayed edges. But you don't have to go all the way to France or Germany or Hungary in order to get these books. I have got all of mine on Amazon. Predominantly, I find the German and French editions to be particularly beautiful, but a lot of the Hungarian editions that are coming out now are also really lovely, so just keep an eye on some of those. But I'll show you one German and one French now here as an example. So this is the French edition of the first book in the Shadows of the Tenebrous Court series. This is A Kiss of Iron by Claire Sager. As you can see, it's got a beautiful design. Here we've got the wraparound sprayed edges, which is absolutely incredible. I just love, love, love the aesthetic of this. Now, it's just a plain naked hardback. There is no dust jacket. Books from continental Europe do tend to come in more of a like B format size rather than, say, a royal hardback size. So if you have a size preference, that is potentially something to consider. Look at the dimensions of the book, but stunning and really not expensive, and I got them on Amazon. And then as an example of German, here I have the German edition of Daughter of No Worlds by Carissa Broadbent. This one has a dust jacket with a reverse design. It has really cool like stained glass sprayed edges. It does have custom end papers, but it is the same on front and back. And something I like about the German editions is they do really beautiful naked hardbacks. So if you take a look at that, that is the naked, and you can also see some of the reverse dust jacket there. Plus, I feel like having foreign language editions just add something fun and interesting to a shelf. So I would definitely consider them to be an option. So keep an eye out on Amazon and see what you can come across, because they routinely put out gorgeous, gorgeous designs. Dude, endometriosis is terrible. I am sore just standing here. Okay, so now let's get into some of these fancier companies, shall we? I want to start with my favorite. The people who I truly cannot fault, who have the most incredible designs. They have fantastic packaging. The pricing for the quality of the products is really, really fair. I would say that if I had to, for financial reasons, tomorrow quit all my book boxes, I would quit them all except for two, because I would never ever want to let this company go. It would be very, very hard for me to. And that is The Broken Binding. The Broken Binding is based in the UK, and as far as I am concerned, they are the GOAT of special editions. Now, they might not have things that interest everyone. They are really focused on fantasy, like trad fantasy, epic fantasy, and sci-fi. That is their specialty, and they do it bloody well. They have 3 different subs. They have the fantasy and sci-fi subs, which are focused on backlist titles, and they'll do like a series or a trilogy at a time. Typically, it's like a trilogy, maybe a duology here and there, but the next ones I'm about to receive will be 4 books, and that is like Malice by John Gwynne. In those subs, there are 2 tiers, which are tier 2 and tier 1. On tier 1, they are numbered special editions. They are signed by the author, where the author still lives. Tier 1 is so highly coveted that you actually cannot put yourself on the waitlist for them. So at the time where I signed up for the waitlist for tier 2 of their fantasy subscription, I had heard that the waitlist for tier 1 was 20 years long. People are not giving up their tier 1 subs. The resale value for the broken binding is extremely high. However, tier 2, amazing. The editions aren't signed, the editions aren't numbered, but who cares, right? That's certainly not something I'm looking for. Additionally, they have a fantasy and sci-fi sub, which I think now is bi-monthly, if I'm not wrong. It may even be monthly. Don't quote me on that, I don't have that one. This is a newer sub. It's got a much shorter waitlist. So for the fantasy tier 2, I think I was on the waitlist for somewhere around 8 months, and I came off that one early last year. However, my best friend, she signed up for their waitlist maybe 2 months ago and has already received an invite. So I feel like they've increased their capacity for tier 2 recently. So, you know, if you're interested, definitely sign up for their waitlist sooner rather than later. But I'm pretty sure the waitlist for the sci-fi fantasy box is incredibly short, so you might be able to get on that one. And that one is focused on new release titles. In this sub, because they are series and you renew for a series, you do get 1 skip per year, which may not be the most generous skip policy compared to some other companies, but essentially, if you time your skip well, you could skip 3 books, you could skip 4 books in a year, because 1 skip would be to skip an entire series offering. So I used my skip last year for a duology they did in November and December. I wasn't that interested in it, and I wanted to put the extra money towards Christmas. So that's how I used my skip. They have amazing packaging. I cannot understate how good they package their books. I have never seen a lick of damage on them, and something would have to go so wrong during shipping. It would have to be mauled by wolves and thrown in the ocean to arrive damaged. They put so much effort and care and resources into their packaging. Watch any of my hauls where I open a broken binding package and you will see what I'm talking about. It's phenomenal. This year they have had quite a few additional pre-orders on the side. However, in comparison to a lot of other companies, I feel like they have less announcements and less volumes of other pre-order titles on the side. I definitely think they take care to really curate their picks, and they pick things that are within the image of their brand, which I really respect. I'll show you an example of one of their books in a second. It's one of my most prized possessions, but once I show you what is on offer, the pricing is really fair. Now, I always have to pay the conversion rate. I am fairly sure that the price for the book itself is only £25. That, especially for what you get, is nothing. And then in terms of their international shipping, they are quite fairly priced as well. I would say the renewal normally comes in somewhere for me around the £46.70 mark. I think that's what my last charge might have been. So typically with conversion to Australian dollars, depends on the exchange rate at the time, obviously, but normally it is somewhere around or just under 80 Australian dollars, which is not terrible. And let me just show you what you get for that $80. This is a highly coveted edition, and one I receive so many compliments for. An edition that would put me on many people's Rob list. It is Magician by Raymond E. Feist. They did the first 3 books in the Rift War saga last year, and I was so happy that I came off the waitlist in time to get them. They work with the most incredible artists, some of my favorite artists. They do a lot of really, really great work with Jeff Brown Graphics, who I am a huge fan of. The sprayed editions are fantastic. They tend to do a lot of continuous design sprayed edges throughout the series that they release. Not always, but a lot of the time they do. So they look just wonderful when they're all lined up together on a shelf. The one customization they don't do is reverse dust jackets. That is something they could add that would, just be an additional layer, but it's certainly not necessary. They've never had a cover design that I dislike. And then this is an example of the hardbacks. And so normally the hardback design is like wraparound onto either side. So here we have the amazing dragon from Magician. And then they just have the most fantastic, amazing end paper designs. Here are the rear end papers in this particular edition. And then I do believe in some designs they may also have tip-in art. Don't quote me on that. They also send out a matching bookmark with each book every month, which is super cute. But additionally, they do have like the ribbon bookmark in it, which is something I absolutely love books to have ribbon bookmarks. I would say the Broken Binding is a company whose editions are coveted, but not ridiculously exclusive. Some of these other companies, they do really suffer from like trying to generate this false sense of FOMO, and they sort of thrive on the exclusivity of their editions. They like that the resale value of their products are exorbitantly expensive. I do not ever feel like that is the case with the Broken Binding. I think they provide generous stock, and then they also like quite quickly will list any like unsigned stock or any slightly damaged stock. So they're even if you miss the first offering of a book, there'll usually be another chance for you to get your hands on it. So I do really like that about them too. Speaking of companies that are highly coveted, highly exclusive, and sort of keep themselves afloat based off hype and FOMO, but a company I do really like nonetheless, it's FairyLoot. I don't think there's any doubt in anyone's mind that FairyLoot is one of the leading powerhouses of special editions. They have done amazing for themselves, and they know their audience, and their audience is the more like girly fantasy romance sort of crowd. So in contrast to the Broken Binding, which is, I would say, more appealing to more than just women, FairyLoot knows their brand, and their brand would, I say, appeal to more women. The designs really are stunning. Not every design they put out is one that I particularly love, but I would say overall they like very much know their image, they very much know their brief, and they certainly do not struggle to have books sell out. I would say they struggle to keep books in stock. They tend to focus on really cute, whimsical designs, stuff that, you know, in that pastel range, it's more girly. FairyLoot has a few different subs, so I am only on the adult sub. The waitlist for the UK International Adult Fantasy book subscription for me was 14 months long. 14 months I was on the FairyLoot waitlist. I believe for US and Canada subs, it's somewhere around like, I cannot remember the last update I saw, but I feel like it's somewhere in the 4 to 8 month range. Let's say 6 to be like in the middle of that. So they have monthly subs and also now some quarterly subs. So monthly they have adult, which I am on, they have young adult, and then they have romantasy. For quarterly, I believe right now they have an epic fantasy sub and now a new like cozy fantasy. I would say they have a decent skip policy, so I'm pretty sure it's 3 books a year for the monthly subs, that is. I would say 3 books a year is a fairly like in the middle of the range skip policy. Now for a company of their size, they could certainly afford to do unlimited skips. There are other companies that sort of rival the size or maybe even slightly smaller than FairyLoot, and they can offer unlimited skips. I think FairyLoot could if they wanted to, but they're not going to. Now, generally speaking, I love FairyLoot's design. I have a couple of like favorites from them, but I'll show you one of them just because it was right behind me, so it was in easy reach. This is Catarbasis by R.F. Kuang. Haven't read this book, but I'm obsessed with the design. It has the most gorgeous edges. I really, really like the dust jacket. The reverse dust jacket is also very nice, not like what I would probably choose to display, but I think it fits like the vibe they were going for. The naked hardback is insanely stunning. I'm obsessed with it. I love the end papers. They're just gorgeous. One thing they're not consistent with is wraparound sprayed edges. or like solid sprayed top and bottom. So this is an example with solid sprayed top and bottom. I think it like sort of works with the design, considering this like staircase they've got going, obviously, which is on theme with the book. I prefer a wraparound like what they've done here on Dawn of the Firebird, or even what they did with Alchemize. I would say design-wise, they are pretty consistently impressive. The design I have been least impressed with since I was subscribed has been Graceless Heart by Isabel Ibanez. The edges are just not it. I think they could have done so much more with this design. Like, I really like the end papers, but yeah, it just doesn't really even feel like FairyLoot, you know? They also churn out a ton of pre-orders. A lot of pre-order titles. And something that's really unfortunate is that they seem to, depending on the title, like, you don't always get a lot of notice that a pre-order is going to be coming up. And then additionally, they'll like put a lot of really coveted pre-order titles all for sale within the same month. So there might be a sale you would love to participate in every week or every few days, depending on the month. And the FairyLoot queue for a pre-order, it's like going to war. Joining the FairyLoot queue, especially for a signed edition, legitimately feels like I am a Spartan soldier and I'm trying to broach the walls of Troy for the first time. Like, day one of Troy versus Sparta. That is how it feels. It feels like there are 50,000 of us just throwing ourselves at this walled fortress. That's what it feels like. No other company does what FairyLoot dares to do with their pre-orders, which is, we're going to stick you in this fuck-ass queue. We couldn't possibly upgrade our website to hold enough people, nor hold like some sort of more fair open pre-order to allow as many of our subscribers to get a book as they possibly can, because we just like thrive off people reselling our books for £300. It is absolutely bizarre. I cannot tell you how many times now I have logged on during a FairyLoot like subscriber exclusive fucking pre-order. I've clicked the link the moment the email goes out, and my wait time in the fairy queue says more than a day. More than a day. Now, normally when it says more than a day, I end up only waiting somewhere like 2 hours. Still too long. I'm trying to give you my money. Why are you making it so hard? I do genuinely believe like that franticness is what they thrive on, and it is extremely annoying as a foreign customer, because like it's the UK, they're on basically an exact opposite time zone to us. A lot of the time their sales are anywhere between midnight and like 2 or 3 a.m. for me, so it's not exceedingly convenient. And then now I'm gonna have to sit in a queue for 2 to 3 hours. Like, let's be so for real. They have like sort of upgraded quote unquote the queue experience now, in the sense that they tell you what position of the queue you are in, and they've also done this thing that doesn't provide an advantage to people who sit around on the FairyLoot website like an hour or more before a sale goes, so that they can essentially jump the queue. So they've made very small changes to improve it. I do like the new queue system in the fact that it has a more accurate read on how long you have to wait, and also tells you what position number in the queue you are in. I do wish they would announce like, hey, we're doing 5,000 copies of this book beforehand. So, you know, if you jumped in the queue 1 minute after it went on sale and your position 6,000 in the queue, it's like, well, I'm not going to sit here wasting my time for 4 hours to get through a queue only to find out that I can't add anything to my cart because it's sold out, you know? But I digress on the whole queue thing. My other major gripe with them is their packaging. Their packaging, I'm sorry to be crass, is fucking dog shit. It is absolutely terrible, and they should be ashamed of themselves. Every book I have received since really the end of last year has arrived with some sort of damage. Now, my original copy of Dawn of the Firebird, the dust jacket was straight up torn, so thankfully they sent me another one, which also arrived slightly squished. All of my editions this year have arrived with like little dents in them, slightly squished, not enough where they would even like honor me with an additional copy, but also like not enough damage where I would even go out of my way to try and get a resolution, because so much of me is like, they should just not be doing what they do, which is they have their little boxes and they slide your beautiful special edition book that you've paid $100 for in the absolute little thinnest little baggy layer of bubble wrap you've ever seen in your life, and then they just stick it in the box with no additional padding, nothing, and like, good luck. It's like, good luck, enjoy the 32-hour flight to Australia, and then the customs processing, and then the drive down the south coast of New South Wales. Like, pretty much anything packaged as poorly as that would arrive a little bit squished, a little bit banged up. It's like inevitable. Again, like, their general prices for the books aren't too bad. They do tend to sit around depending, but say for the sub, I think the book is also around that £25 mark. And then shipping is not too terrible. So usually for FairyLoot, I pay somewhere similar to the Broken Binding in the £80 range. From everything I understand, FairyLoot is a flip ton bigger company than the Broken Binding is. I think they do way higher sales. The Broken Binding can invest in good packaging for the same price. I don't understand why FairyLoot cannot. Okay, I know I said I was done talking about the queue, but I'm sort of going to jump back into the queue thing, sort of. FairyLoot's unlocked in our shop sales. Don't bother. They've probably got about 50 copies of each book they put up. You have no chance. That shit is going to be sold out in 5 seconds flat, and you still have no chance really of getting one of those coveted title books that you might have wanted, but you can't buy because they only go for £300 on resale. Unlocked in our shop. If you've ever managed to buy something, congratulations. I got in the queue for their last Unlocked in our shop, and while I was sitting in the queue, I checked their Instagram story, and in the 1 minute that I had been in the queue, they had sold out of almost every single title, and they had certainly sold out of all the titles that were coveted. So FairyLoot, you don't have to be a subscriber to get their pre-sales, that's what I would say. However, a lot of the pre-sales, especially for coveted titles, they don't make it to general sale. Some titles do, not all. So if you're not actually an active sub, your chance of getting your hands on their more anticipated releases is unfortunately quite slim. So that's just something to keep in mind if you're going to, try and get your hands on a title. And I would say in my experience, their fulfillment has been very consistent. When they say a pre-order is going to be shipped out, it is like shipped out in that time frame. I've never had like a situation with them where they've had to delay, at least not since I've been a customer of theirs. Their monthly sub picks tend to ship like pretty much bang around the same time every month, which I appreciate. Now, I know, like, as I'm filming this, there have been some issues with the US and Canada with getting orders fulfilled. I'm not sure what the whole situation is with that. I hope they get it resolved soon, but in all my experience, FairyLoot has been very consistent in fulfillment. Okay, let's move on to a company that I love talking about. I love to talk about an Australian company that puts out really awesome designs, really cares about their customers, and is actually a fair price. None of this like Australian price thing where they charge about 3 times more than they should. And that company is Bookish Spice. Bookish Spice has 3 bi-monthly subscriptions. We have the fantasy romance, the dark romance, and the contemporary romance sub. The dark romance and the fantasy romance are $65 every second month, and the contemporary romance is $62 every second month. Now, the reason the contemporary is slightly cheaper is because it doesn't come with a specially designed pin. The Bookish Spice dark romance and fantasy romance, one of the things that they come with are these beautiful little pins that, represent the book that is in the sub that month, whereas that's not an inclusion in the contemporary, hence why it's a little bit cheaper. Bookish Spice also have these bookmarks that come with them every month, and usually they are digitally signed or they come with a signed book plate to do with as you like. Something I really like about this company, and something actually that the Broken Binding does that I didn't mention, is that they announce the picks for the months and preview the designs in advance. Now, they don't show, and it goes for both companies I'm loosely talking about here, they don't show the entire design in advance, so they don't show like all the papers and all the tip-ins and stuff like that, but they will show the dust jacket and the edges in advance, so that way like you have some time to look into the title, see if it's anything you would be interested in. And, you know, in terms of the dark romance, like to check trigger warnings and stuff, and then also have a bit of a sneak peek of what the design may look like. And they do it in advance of when the renewal fee occurs, so that you have some time to think about it and some time to skip if you are not interested. I would say they have a very fair skip policy. You can skip half of the picks in a year. So 6 books in a year, you can skip 3, which I think is pretty fair. They have really great pricing in my opinion, especially for those of us in Australia and New Zealand, because the shipping is included in the cost price for us. So $65 or $62, that includes the shipping for Australia and New Zealand. So that is amazing. I would say they do like a good chunk of additional like pre-order titles in the year, which they'll announce in advance, and again like preview as much as they can in advance. They do early access for those titles for subscribers, but I've never seen anything not make it to a general sale for them, so you absolutely still have a good chance to get any pre-orders in a general sale. They also do really frequent extra stock sales, which I appreciate. They'll do like a big extra stock sale here and there, but they've decided like as they have extras of pre-order editions, they're just going to like pop them up for sale, whereas like the extra stock sales are now going to be more focused on extra stock from the actual book boxes themselves. So, you know, if you're not a subscriber, if you keep an eye out for the extra stock sales, you have like a pretty good chance of getting one. In fact, I would check their Instagram now, because as I'm saying this, I'm fairly sure next week or maybe the week after, they are doing an extra stock sale. So if you want to grab any of their previous book sub-box titles, I'd definitely try and get your hands on them then. I will say, however, in regards to the extra stock sales, like very, very popular titles that they have a limited additional stock of in their extra stock sales may be sold out during general. I have only, I think, observed it with one title, which was Trick from their dark romance. I was actually interested in getting that one, but it sold out like straight away in the early access. Last time they had it in an extra stock sale, so I didn't end up getting my hands on it. But I would say, like, generally speaking, you have a pretty good chance of getting your hands on any of their titles in an extra stock sale. They have super, super open communication, which is something I really appreciate about them as a company. There were some issues towards like the middle and end of last year with some of their books arriving on time, but they were so open about why they were, like how the timelines had changed. It was really to do with external factors that had nothing to do with them as a company. They just had to sort of cop the brunt of it. But I don't mind delays so long as the communication is really clear and really open, and they're great at doing that. And it is like a rare event that something like that were to happen. Their owner, I believe her name is Michaela, apologies if I'm wrong, but she also has a separate Instagram page that I think is called Beyond the Binding. And in that one, she shares a lot about like the behind the scenes process. She previews like little snippets of different designs, and she talks a lot about what it's like to be the owner of this company and sort of all the factors in the decision making. So that's a really great and open piece of communication that they have as well. One last comment, they have amazing packaging. Really, really good. Comes really tightly packaged in their beautiful box. They have a really cool like specially designed box. It's really awesome. Go check out one of my hauls to see. They're like always in my book hauls. And then the book itself arrives snugly packaged between these two perfectly sized pieces of foam. That book, she's not wiggling and wobbling in there. She's very, very secure. So I love that. I'll just quickly show you like one of their recent designs. This is quite a coveted title that arrived in their fantasy romance box, but previewed the designs. I wasn't that impressed, but when it arrived, I was impressed. So this is Spark of the Everflame by Penn Cole. I just love, love, love what they do. Like the naked hardcover follows a really similar gorgeous color scheme. Their naked hardcovers like do tend to be just absolutely insane. So like that's the naked hardcover. They do really cool reverse dust jackets, which I like that they do the reverse dust jackets. Sometimes the design they have included on the reverse is actually what I end up preferring. So I like having the option, and they just work with absolutely amazing artists for all their art. Okay, next up we have Locked Library and the Forbidden Wing. This is a UK-based box, and they're actually owned by HarperCollins Publishing. This is basically the Publisher Deluxe editions I mentioned earlier, but at like a special edition book box price point. It is absurd. I truly think with this company, like, the price versus the customizations you get is not ideal, which is ultimately why I ended up cancelling both their subscriptions. So they have the two. Their OG is the Locked Library, and then the second is the Forbidden Wing. I believe the Forbidden Wing is supposed to be, like, strictly romantasy, but I'm pretty sure both boxes are just romantasy. And to be honest, the Forbidden Wing, and I cancelled it, I think before I even cancelled my other, like, main Locked Library sub, it just feels so directionless. Like, a sub called Forbidden Wing, you are expecting romantasy, like a little bit darker, more adult, maybe some spicy pics, not young adult titles like Soul Hate. Oh, shit. That sounded way more dramatic than it actually was. HarperCollins, like, trying to take me out from a distance. This is actually one of my favorite designs from the Forbidden Wing, but it seems like they missed the brief, you know? Like, in this sub, it is truly just like a normal Publisher Deluxe. Like, yeah, sometimes you have nice naked hardbacks, no sprayed reverse design. It's always pretty much solid sprayed top and bottom. And I would say in, like, 95% of the books I have from them, it is the same design, front and back end papers, and they're usually something pretty basic like this. They have some designs that are like true winners, but they just, to me, have so many other flops in the middle. So my most coveted book I own from them is probably this book that I hate. I do not like this book. It is so bad, but I own it. Blood of Hercules by Jasmine Mass. I get so many people saying they're envious of the fact that I own this book. I will end up selling it one day because I don't like it, but even this is just, like, so basic. I feel like they had a really good run in the beginning because they did, I believe, Babel, and they did When the Moon Hatched in the Locked Library sub when they first came out, and those designs they did just an absolutely brilliant job with, and so people join their sub because, you know, it's the publisher, so they can do the deluxe designs like a lot sooner than a lot of these other companies can get the licensing to do so. And their designs for Babel and When the Moon Hatched were just fantastic, but really, since those two books have come out, I have not seen them release, well, I guess with the exception of Blood of Hercules, I've not really seen them release a single highly anticipated title. Like, HarperCollins Voyager releases so many really amazing, highly coveted, highly anticipated titles every year, and now they don't even seem to put them in the box. They seem to use the boxes as like a way to get people to read more of their lesser known, less popular titles, which I don't have any major objections to, but unfortunately it does mean that because something is put in the sub, I get to read absolutely terrible, like, I never DNF books, guys, I gotta be honest with you. They put one of the worst books I've ever read, The Bell Witches by Lindsay Kelk, in their sub, and they made it so pretty, and then it was just so awful. And I do like, something I like about book subs is that it can give you exposure to, like, some smaller titles and titles you might not have heard of and might not have ordinarily picked up, but I do feel like they launched the success of their company off really coveted, anticipated titles, and now they don't seem to follow through with that anymore. So I do keep my eye on their picks, as, you know, they're predicted every month, to see if they start to pick up their game, but I have not seen designs from them nor titles from them that I am particularly interested in. So the thing about this is they do have, like, a short wait list, I will say that, because they can produce so much more volume because they're a publisher, right? So it could be like a good entry-level company for you, but the shipping to Australia is exorbitant. It is far more than the actual cost of the book. So if you're Aussie, it might not be a good option for you, but if you're in the UK, I think it is a good place to start for book subs. The US, I don't believe they can get their main Locked Library sub, but I do believe that they can get on the Forbidden Wing. But the Forbidden Wing is, like, for what it's called, very juvenile and very YA. So if you're into YA romantasy, then by all means, like The Forbidden Wing might be for you, but I don't know, I feel like there's much better companies out there, but they were one of my first. And I guess one more thing, I have ordered another book from them because they did announce a matching special edition of The Ballad of Fallen Dragons. Now, I don't have their edition of When the Moon Hatched, but I don't really care. I will be collecting as many editions as I can get my hands on of The Ballad of Fallen Dragons, and I do like the design they put out for that one, and they seem to provide a lot of stock, honestly, I think, to stop this like reseller issue, so I do appreciate that. So thankfully I will be getting their edition of The Ballad of Fallen Dragons, and I am extremely excited about that. I think they have also announced Dracula. They're trying to get into more classics now, so they announced Dracula, and then I think yesterday they announced the Odyssey. I think their design for the Odyssey was the ugliest thing I've ever seen in my life, but worth checking out if you're interested. Okay, Illumicrate and all her sister boxes. I actually really like Illumicrate as a company. They are predominantly based in the UK, but they also have a US website and a US warehouse. And as an Australian, I think you can order from both, but if you get the sub, it's going to be from the UK warehouse. I love everything about this company, bar one thing, and it is unfortunately their shipping cost. It was just too high. Afterlight, which is their romance sub, contemporary romance, I love their designs. They all come in this really quaint, really cute B format, and they just have beautiful designs. I really enjoyed this pick from them, actually. I did end up cancelling Afterlight for two reasons. One, I'm just not the biggest consumer of contemporary romance ever. And two, because the price was hefty. I think this little book here cost me $100 or $110. Absurd. And it's just because of the shipping company they use. The edition themselves is, I think, £20. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the edition was £20 and the shipping was over £25 if I'm not wrong. I don't know if they've changed it since then, but just not something I could be affording every month. However, the great thing about their boxes is that they are unlimited skips and they're a super short waitlist. Like, I'm pretty sure the waitlist is 1 month or non-existent. Like, you sign up and immediately get an offer. So I really love them for their quality. I love a lot of the designs that they do. And I love that they are an accessible option in terms of their stock levels. However, I'm not a current active subscriber of theirs. Now, their fantasy sub, I've never been subscribed to them, but I do keep an eye on them. And sometimes I will buy like their surplus stock. When I found out they were doing the Irresistible Urge to Fall for Your Enemy, and I saw this, I am obsessed with this edition. I've talked about it before, but I'm obsessed with this edition. When I saw they had extra stock of this, I went ahead and got it. I do think this was also still somewhere in that $100 range, but because it was more of a one-off purchase, like, it didn't bother me too much. Keep an eye on the fantasy sub picks though, and I will say something I really like about them, and I would be subscribed to them if not for the price barrier, but their fantasy sub, they do really pick some more niche picks. Like, it is not the same stuff you see in all the other boxes, which I appreciate. I would love to be on their sub if I could justify the price. I also think they have really interesting designs. Like, it all fits together and is cohesive, and like, they have a brand identity, but not every single book looks the same. They don't always use the same artist. They have the same essence, I would say, the designs, and they're cohesive. Each of the books feels different, if you know what I mean. I think their customizations also are just so excellent. Something I will say about their Afterlight sub too is, because I do still keep an eye on their picks, if you are interested, and I think this sort of does go for their fantasy sub too, but Illumicrate does a lot of LGBTQ plus picks, especially in their romance sub, which I think is very unique about them. So if you are interested in titles that are LGBTQ, like, I would definitely say check out Illumicrate, check out Afterlight, because I'm pretty sure a lot of their fantasy books they pick that have a romance subgenre are LGBT, and like, same with their contemporary sub, a lot of the picks are LGBT. I think last year, I think 50% of their contemporary sub were LGBT picks, so if that appeals to you, then have at it. I would also say they usually have plenty of extra stock. I think this is just a consequence of them allowing unlimited skips, which is amazing. But, you know, if you're not subbed, there's a good chance you'll still be able to get the titles after the fact anyway, which is great. They have incredible pre-orders. Incredible pre-orders. They also do open pre-order periods, which is like, you know, between April 2nd and May 2nd. Have at it, like pre-order away, and then on May 2nd we're going to close them, and then that's it. That's how many we do. So I was really fortunate to get their editions of the Farseer trilogy. Stunning, some of my most prized possessions. I was blown away by the customizations on that. And I also managed to get the second round of pre-orders for their Bridgerton set, which I am insanely excited for. That won't be until later this year, unfortunately, but I am so excited. When they announced the reprint, I was beside myself. I knew I had to get it, and I did. So I can't wait for those to arrive. They also have a horror sub, which I think is, I could be wrong, but I believe it's called Nevernight. So if you're into horror, like, definitely check the titles out, see what you think. It could be a good option for you. As far as I know, there aren't a ton of like horror subs out there, so that definitely could be one for you. I think among the special edition greats, they are a very solid contender, and I would recommend them. Next up on my list, I have OwlCrate. OwlCrate is a US-based company, and I think it's one that's like, I would say it's very well known, but I wouldn't say it's highly coveted. And there's a couple of different reasons for this. I would say the main reason is an inconsistent design quality. So I was on their quarterly romantasy sub for only 2-month offerings. So I got the first book that was open to me, and then I got the second book. This is the second one I got from them here, What Fury Brings by Trisha Levenseller. And I quite like the actual design itself on this one. And I liked it a lot more than the book I got in the first offering, which I'm not even going to touch and show you because the texture of the dust jacket is so repulsive that it makes me gag, and I don't want to gag on camera in front of you guys again. They have multiple sub options. I'm not sure of exactly what they are, to be honest. So I would go and check it out to see if they've got one you might be interested in. But I was on the quarterly romantasy for 2 offerings. I believe they have a monthly adult and I think a monthly YA. They may also have a horror sub, so again, go and check that out if you're into horror. They do tend to have extra stock as well, which I would say is like maybe one reason that I don't hear of a ton of people being subscribed to them, because there's a good chance you'll just be able to get extra stock from the subs on their website later anyway. They are a big name, but I would say maybe their problem is that they're not necessarily like putting out a lot of highly anticipated release editions every year. I would say the most their name has been in people's mouths in recent times was they did a really gorgeous edition of Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. Stunning, stunning, stunning. Wish I could have got my hands on it, honestly. I would also say one more thing about their design. So I have 4 books from them, the 2 from the OwlCrate Romantasy, and then I also have their 6 of Crows and Crooked Kingdom duology. Their designs just, it must be the printer that they use. Their designs just always seem to come out a little bit muddy looking. So they just don't have that like crispness behind them that I know myself and a lot of other people like to see in their special editions, so I think that is like a little bit of a con from them. Next up, LitJoy Crate. So they're actually not most well known for their sub, but I do have their sub. It is the quarterly To Be Read box. Something I like about this sub is that you get to pick between 2 books on each offering, so they'll announce like well in advance of the renewal what those 2 titles will be. You can read into them, have a look. Usually but not always, there will be like a young adult pick and an adult pick, or it will be like a fantasy and a contemporary romance. And LitJoy Crate is based in the US. Just as an example of one of their TBR books, so this is Vessalus by Courtney Wynn. LitJoy, like, they're just very consistent in their quality, which I really like. On this particular one, the naked hardback is just the US trad cover. They have front end papers and differently designed back end papers. In this particular edition, I wasn't really blown away by the artist that they work with, unfortunately. But in terms of like hand feel and quality and heft, they are very consistent in their design. I just get the book only box, but they also do boxes that are book plus items. And I would probably say that they're honestly better value because LitJoy Crate does do really, really cool bookish items. So have a look, see what you'd be interested in. But I typically like, even though I only get the book only sub, I'll have a look through what the offerings that they do have in the items box are, and I'm always like, oh my gosh, that stuff is so cute. Like, I don't get it because I don't know what I would do with all those bookish items. But if you are someone who is into bookish items, I think their TBR sub could be like a great way to get your hands on bookish items. I would also say that out of all the US book box companies I have come across, LitJoy Crate has the most fair shipping prices to Australia. They use DHL, and I don't know what is different between LitJoy Crate's DHL and some other American companies who use DHL, but typically shipping's like $20, $15, something like that. It's not a lot. Some other American book box companies who use DHL, I will get quoted shipping that's like 220 Australian dollars, which absolutely is just not happening. So I don't know what LitJoy is doing in that shipping space, but they're doing it right. LitJoy as a company, however, their focus and their appeal is definitely in their pre-orders. They are a predominantly pre-order heavy company, but they do tend to be open pre-order periods. I've very rarely, I think maybe in one instance, I have seen a series that they've done on pre-order sell out during the pre-order period, and I think that was for The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. But yeah, I got my beautiful Shadow and Bone and King of Scars duology special editions through them, which I absolutely love. Their major fault though is that they are late. They have delays. You will never see anything quite like their lateness, their delays. I am pretty sure that my Shadow and Bone set, they pushed back so many times it ended up coming 1.5 years after the original expected delivery date, and people will go, oh, but it's a pre-order, like that's just an estimate, it can get pushed back because it's a pre-order. No, it shouldn't take you an additional 1.5 years to get a slipcase right, but they are always late, even with their quarterly book box. If you had a renewal in February, I'm sorry, you are not receiving that book until like March or April. So that is their main con, and like tying into that, they wait until the very last second to announce that there's a delay. So I'll take like my experience with King of Scars duology and Shadow and Bone. They would say if they had pushed it back and they were like, okay, now it's going to be delivered in summer of 2024. They would wait until the last week of summer of 2024 to say, actually, there's more delays. Let's say it's going to be winter. And that's sort of how they work. And it's like, you knew earlier than that you weren't going to be able to ship all these books out in summer of 2024, so you should have said something sooner. I'm very forgiving as long as communication is open. One thing I don't like about them is that they wait until the last second. But they have really good book quality, like really great hand feel, really good weight behind them, good page quality. They have amazing customizations. They have really fun bookish items. Like, I have this amazing Throne of Glass bookshelf alley is from them. They do these keys as well. I love the keys. I think they're so fun. I have a replica of the Mortal Cup on my shelf in the living room. I love it. So while I haven't bought like a ton of bookish items, I do really like the ones they do. So that is something really fun that I like about LitJoy. They also have a huge genre variety, I would say. Like, they do classics, they do fantasy, they do YA, they do romance. They aren't sort of shoehorned into one genre. I would definitely say that they remain like a pre-order powerhouse, though I don't think focusing on the sub is ever going to be a priority for them, and I don't blame them. Like, pre-orders is truly where they shine. One other thing to note about the TBR sub, though, if you get on it, you don't get any early access to their pre-order sales. You can get early access to their pre-orders if you pay to be a subscriber to their like Lunicorns thing, which I don't really know what that is. but the sub doesn't give you any benefits other than you get a book every quarter. Or approximately every quarter, whenever they ship it out. Another Australian company now, this one very indie. We have Book Addiction Australia. So here I have my stunning, I'm sorry for the glare, but my stunning edition of Dark Rise by C.S. Packet. And I have their Captive Prince trilogy set with items on pre-order. I am outrageously excited for that. Book Addiction Australia is a very, very small company. From what I understand, it is run by one woman. Due to the fact that it is so small, this does mean that there are really significant impacts to timelines based off, you know, if she has travel planned, or unfortunately she seems that she's been quite unwell. So I do think operations are slowed down by that, which is more than understandable, but just something to keep in mind as a purchaser. The company, as far as I'm aware, really does subsist on pre-orders. So I think their big ones right now are the Captive Prince trilogy, and I think she's also doing the Illuminate files on pre-order. But these books are super, super high quality, and I love the artists that she works with. I'll throw up on the screen a screenshot of the Instagram of one of the artists that she really commonly works with, and who I think FairyLoot works with a bit. Stunning, impeccable, in love with this artist, and I really love what they put out together. And I think Book Addiction Australia's prices are like really good. I think they're good and fair prices. What can I say? Okay, Acrylipics. Acrylipics is kind of like a cool and interesting company. They're currently doing this really unique thing with like a 3D printed sprayed edge, which at first I thought was kind of ugly and gimmicky, but now it's growing on me and I actually kind of like it. They put out really great sets. My Throne of Glass set from Acrylipics is my magnum opus. I am obsessed with it. It is my most prized possession. I can come and sit in this room and stare at that Acrylipics set, and I am so happy. And I'm glad it makes me feel that way, because it was effing expensive. I love their sets, but they are stupidly expensive, especially with shipping. Like, I'm pretty sure with shipping, this set, I think it was like $900, close to $1,000, something like that. It was a lot, but I love it. But yeah, it's not the most like accessible for everyone. And despite the fact that I really love the designs of the sprayed edges, and they do like page overlays, and they have like these bookmarks and stuff. Overall, the customizations are pretty limited. It is just sprayed on the trad hardcover. So there's no like special end paper designs, there's no naked hardback designs. I love it. I do think the prices are high for the level of customizations you get, but if it's you're buying like an ultimate magnum opus trophy of your favorite series ever, I think they're not too bad. They do have a sub, I will say, that I have not heard great things about, and every design I have seen from their sub is ugly, and it doesn't look like they've put an extreme amount of effort in it, to be honest with you. I'm definitely open to like keeping an eye on the progress of their sub. It is still relatively early days in terms of their subscription. If I start hearing like people say that they're amazing and seeing really cool designs come out, maybe I would consider signing up to see what it's like, but right now I just do not see any appeal in it. Something else I do recognize about Acrylipics is that their design style is probably not for everyone, but that's art, like, right? Art is subjective. So I do think it's not for everyone, but I really like the designs that they put out. I feel like I also can't mention them without making a little nod to like some recent AI controversy they had. Now, I'm not fully across this because I try to stay as much as possible out of book drama because it makes me sick, but there's a bit more about it on like the FairyLoot subreddit, but there were some accusations of AI being used by Acrylipics in one of their designs. I believe the owners have vehemently denied any use of AI, but I'm not 100% up to date on that. So, you know, if that's something that really concerns you and you're thinking of buying from them, maybe like check into that and see what you think. I'll keep an eye on it myself. I haven't really heard it go anywhere other than the initial accusation, but yeah, I just did want to mention that considering I'm mentioning the company. Okay, one of my favorites. Oh my gosh. My girl. Which one am I going to pull out? You know what? we're just going to put our attention over here to my Crescent City, and then this one of Accutane here, and you know what, I'll just point them all out. This one, this one, this one, this one, this one. There's some more down here, I don't know if you can see them, but this one, this one, this one, this one. All from Perfectly Edged. I am obsessed with Perfectly Edged. Now, these are almost all just the trad hardcover with a sprayed edge design on them. Like, she is one person, she is independent. She does do some work with licensing where she can, and gets the designed dust jackets. So, like, for example, what they have here with Accutane, beautiful. I really hope she can get her license renewed so we can get the rest of the series, because honestly, her designs of Accutane were the first ones I've seen that I wanted to spend money on. But typically it's like these. So this is her collab with Hannah's Book Paintings. So the designs by Hannah's Book Paintings. And then I think, ooh, I buy from her so much, I feel terrible if this is not actually her name, but I think the owner's name is Cherie. And yeah, typically it's just the standard hardback with the beautiful sprayed edge on it. I love her. I buy as much as I can from her in titles I'm interested in. It is a little bit expensive, I'm not gonna lie, but she uses Royal Mail for shipping, which I really like. She packages very well, and I love just supporting an indie artist who is doing her own thing, doing her best, being an amazing businesswoman. She is extremely prompt. I have been following her and buying from her for a good while now. I've never seen a delay. She is always on time. Absolutely fantastic. I cannot rate Perfectly Edged highly enough. She does also do second sales, which is like very slightly damaged copies. I have quite a few of these books as second sales. Like this Accutane was a second sale. There's literally nothing wrong with it. This one of Belladonna was second sale. There is nothing wrong with it. That is like her fault. This is slightly yellowed. That is the only reason that it was on sale, but the second sale is a great way to get a beautiful book for a bit cheaper that probably has a tiny amount of damage that you cannot even perceive. I think the one I have from second sale that is the only one I went, oh yeah, like I truly see what the error was here, is When the Moon Hatched. I'm obsessed with this design, by the way. It's stunning. She just sprayed it upside down. So if I were to take the dust jacket off, it's upside down and back to front. But it doesn't matter, right? Because she just sits there up on my shelf, and if I didn't tell you, we would be none the wiser. I'm gonna like explicitly mention, I feel like I missed a whole page. Didn't I have a whole section on Dreamer Whale? Dreamer Whale and Page and Wick. Let me get them out. Then I might talk smack about a couple more companies. Ah! Oh my gosh, I almost dropped it. Did I scratch her? Oh gosh, this is just getting chaotic, isn't it? Okay, last two mentions. Page and Wick. This is my beautiful edition of When the Moon Hatched. I think this was just a pre-order. I don't know if it was originally in their sub or not, but they have a sub. I did sign up for their waitlist. I did get an offer. I ultimately decided not to join just because I've already got so many other subs and it was a little bit expensive, but I'm obsessed with this. This is another one of my most prized possessions. The one book I have, this is amazing quality. I do now have some more stuff on pre-order from them, which is so exciting. I have pre-ordered their To Bleed a Crystal Bloom trilogy, so I'm so excited for that. If they do the Ballad of Falling Dragons, I'll definitely order that as well. But their sub is like a really cool concept. Not only is it, I think you can get book only, but it's called Page and Wick because it's books and candles. So in the sub, you get a book and then you get a candle that like matches that book, which I think is so cool. Maybe in the future, if I like drop some other subs, I could potentially pick that one up. But I just think it's such a fun concept. So definitely check them out. I'm so sorry, guys. I don't remember what I was saying. My camera overheated, which is like so dramatic. Get over yourself, you know what I mean? Okay, I think I was like finished sort of talking about Page and Wick. So I'll quickly talk about Dreamer Whale. Dreamer Whale is an Italian company. They do a monthly sub, I believe, which I'm not subscribed to. But oh my gosh, their designs are unreal. Most of their editions, because they're an Italian company, are obviously in Italian, but they do have like an English portion of their website. They send out their newsletters in Italian and English, and then I do believe they also do some special editions in English now, if I'm not mistaken. But this is their edition of Quicksilver. It is stunning. One of the favorite books I received last year. I absolutely adore this book, and it is signed by Callie Hart, which is fabulous. I love their designs, but I typically don't get too crazy FOMO from them. However, they did just do an edition of Silver Elite. Thank goodness they had some additional stock up for pre-order, because when I saw someone I follow, Portia Reads, when she posted pictures of her edition that she received from them, I was absolutely gagged. I cannot wait for mine to arrive. I love Dreamer Whale's aesthetic, so definitely check them out. Okay, so I'm pretty sure those are all the ones I want to talk about today. Obviously, there are so many more companies, and I haven't tried all of them, so I can't possibly talk about them all. There are some companies that are quite well known that I have really wanted to try, but unfortunately they just have like exorbitant shipping costs to Australia, and I cannot justify paying 3 times the price of a book for shipping. But if you have any questions about specific companies, feel free to leave a comment below and I can tell you like what I do know about them if you're curious. Another great resource is the r/FairyLoot subreddit. If you go on there and you search the name of a company you might be interested in, you can see like all the posts on there, see what people have to say about them. So that's a great resource and one that I have used a lot. But yeah, again, if you have any questions about any book boxes, just drop them below. I am more than happy to take the time to help you guys if I think I possibly can. Just as an aside though, I do want to say that I have 2 companies that I cannot in good faith recommend to anybody. And those are Hemingway and all their associated book boxes. I have a whole separate video about why exactly that is, and Hemingway's been getting a lot of attention recently. I do not recommend Hemingway. They might be fulfilling orders now, but they are grossly overcharging, and given their history, it's only a matter of time before they pull the plug and stop fulfilling orders. I genuinely believe so. I cannot support them, and I do not recommend anyone purchase from them. I also just really don't like liars, and they are liars. And the other company I cannot support right now due to a bad experience I had with them is Ruined by Fiction. Unfortunately, this is another Indian company whose name I have to explicitly mention as not being trustworthy, but she literally disappeared for 5 months last year. She did eventually finally send the book that I had on pre-order, but when it arrived, just a bit muddy looking colors, not great quality. They are like unlicensed designs, which is fine. Like I'm not too bothered by licensing always, but it's just not the best option. The price is a bit high, and now, you know, Ruined by Fiction's trying to build back her reputation by doing a Throne of Glass set, and I just don't currently have any trust in her to fulfill the orders. She's announcing like so many pre-orders right now, and she does not have a good history of keeping up with her pre-orders. So I would basically need to see like 24 months of good behavior from her before I trusted it again. So I would say that Hemingway and Ruined by Fiction are 2 companies that I really cannot in good faith recommend to any of you guys right now. So, but that's just my thoughts. Like, do what you want at the end of the day, but that's just like life according to Leah. Anyway, now my camera is well and truly about to die. I have been filming for like an hour and a half, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to leave any comments you have down below. Thumbs up if you enjoyed, and don't forget to subscribe if you are not already. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to spend it here with me. I really appreciate it. I don't take it for granted, that's for sure. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again. Bye!